But first, one of the more hilarious examples of self-delusion which has spread through the ABC centres around the entitled viewpoint that the national broadcaster is obligated to be given a leaders' debate. Here at Sky News, we've hosted countless debates between candidates and provided that content for free across our digital platforms, which collectively have a significantly higher reach than the ABC.
You're the Treasurer for New South Wales. You weren't here. Public hospitals need more help than they've received from this government.
Well, Kieran, I'm not going to be insulted like that.
I'm open to work with either side of government.
I think you're being dishonest with them. You've got to level with them. You've got to say, if I'm elected, this is who I'll support.
Mines will not be affected by this.
Unless they hit the threshold, and then they need to buy carbon credits, and that's a levy.
The working area here will be safe.
I'm not quite sure how longer you can be disingenuous about that, I have to say, Kylie.
Do you talk to him? I know, and that's
You've
why
never met him. You've never met Simon Holmes at all?
Why didn't you support turnbacks then?
You weren't proposing then.
No,
you were not proposing.
I'm sorry, we were. It was our policy.
Now, those are just a few of the best highlights. It's been a busy couple of weeks. But we've spoken on this show about the outrage from progressives when Sky News secured a leadership debate. But when commercial outlets 7 and 9 also each locked in a leaders' debate, ABC journalists lost their minds. Breakfast presenter Michael Rowland wrote, "It is beyond disappointing the ABC is not hosting a leaders' debate." And ABC shock jock Patricia Karvelis was equally incensed. "I think it's really appalling that the national broadcaster doesn't have one of these debates." So instead of working hard internally to lock in their own debate, they were crying about their inability to do their own jobs. And ABC host Paul Barry had a different answer to why Sky News secured a debate. He aired this conspiracy theory a few weeks back.
Are our leaders now hiding on pay TV to avoid the glare of voters? Perhaps, but Sky has a format that allows voters to ask the questions, and both campaigns want to keep Sky on side. As former News Corp political reporter Malcolm Farr, a veteran of these debates, told us,
"You do have to wonder what sort of leverage was employed to ensure that Sky News got the debate. It certainly wasn't because of the incredible reach."
Incredible stuff. Barry's team have called up a person who has no involvement in our debates at all and aired an allegation that it was only secured due to leverage being nefariously applied. Paul Barry, can you please show us a single piece of evidence that proves those comments? The man is supposed to be a journalist, but that is just a conspiracy theory. Are you starting to get an idea of why Scott Morrison would be crazy to agree to a debate on the ABC? After betraying every basic journalistic principle for years, defaming conservative politicians, costing taxpayers hundreds and thousands of dollars, defending allegations that can't be proved, they've lost the privilege of trust. Instead, both parties are turning to the private sector because they know at least the debates will be professionally run. And when these debates go ahead, all of the journalists who were bagging Sky News absolutely love the content. The Guardian's lazy political pundits sit there writing down every word said, and most journalists can't even bring themselves to credit Sky for the great news lines the debates generate. Which brings me back to Michael Rowland. Bitter and depressed about his own inability to secure a leadership debate, he tweeted out these quotes from Sky's Kooyong debate. Treasurer Josh Frydenberg, in his debate with Monique Ryan, explains the thinking behind the Keep Josh billboards in his Kooyong electorate at The Guardian Australia. Yes, he credits The Guardian without any mention of Sky, and this is the root of the problem. These are journalists who believe themselves to be doing a public service on the same moral level as firefighters or nurses, perhaps even higher depending on their level of delusion. They can't even understand why hard-working people at other networks are able to establish multiple debates all around Australia. There is no great conspiracy at play here. It is people working the phones day in, day out, only to have their hard work used by the likes of Michael Rowland and the Weasley hacks at The Guardian. And for Paul Barry to uncritically air a conspiracy theory that our success in hosting the leadership debate was due to leverage being deployed is everything that is wrong with the ABC. And that is why the ABC will not manage to secure its own debate. Its journalists are so overtly biased that they've become irrelevant to mainstream thought. Well, joining me to cut through the spin of the big stories this week is YouTuber and contributor Daisy Cousins and Director of Communications at the Institute of Public Affairs, Evan Mulholland. Evan, why don't we start with you? Really interested to hear your thoughts on, do you think the average person cares who has the debate? And what do you make of some of the outrage of the journalists that have failed to secure one?
This is a completely insider game issue. The ABC and its journalists are complaining on Twitter, including their friends at The Guardian complaining on Twitter about not receiving a debate, where I think ABC journalists ought to have a little self-reflection as to why they don't have a debate. Is it because they aired a QAnon conspiracy theory story about the Prime Minister's connections to QAnon? Is it because they had a slanderous report on two coalition cabinet ministers? Is it because they're increasing bias on social media? So the ABC needs a little self-reflection here. I think even more laughable, actually, was the ALP campaign director's urging of the Prime Minister to agree to a debate at the Press Club hosted by Laura Tingle, a person who's called the Prime Minister, or accused him of ideological bastardry, called him smug and called him a goose. I wonder why the Prime Minister would reject that as an impartial commentator. And I think journalists ought to look at the presidency of the Press Club and reflect on whether they could have debates in future if they pick someone a little less biased. But you look at the market share between the media organisations. ABC is always below 15%. It's third behind 7 and 9. But then you look at Sky News' digital reach, and it's much higher than the ABC or any other commercial network. And also it was combined with the Courier Mail and the News Corp tabloids, which reach much more people than the ABC. So the ABC ought to have a little self-reflection on why they didn't have the debate.
Daisy, it's such a good point. Real people out there, the punters that are watching this debate, the people who are trying to process how interest rates are going to be affecting them, who has a better economic plan, do you think they really care about this very insular journalist debate over which organisation got the debate? Or do you think they want the real issues covered? Do they want the journalists actually spending time reporting the news?
Oh, God, I don't think everyday people care at all what platform or what channel the debate is on. You know, as you say, they care about the issues. And the thing about, Sky News and the commercial networks, they do it in such a kind of fun way because they're private companies. I mean, the Sky News format was so great, having the undecided voters there. The ABC would never even think to do that because they're the public broadcaster and they take themselves oh so seriously. I mean, if you've ever seen their election coverage, for instance, which I'm sure you have, it's so drear and it's so boring and there's no sparkle. And if you want to hold a debate purely from an entertainment perspective, you're much better to go to the private networks because they'll have a whole lot more imagination. And as you say, ordinary people, they want to hear the issues, they want to hear the facts. They're not going to care about this silly, insular, journalistic gripe that ABC journos have. And look, on the subject of self-reflection, I mean, I absolutely think they should self-reflect, of course, as to why they won't have one. But we have to remember here, this is just my opinion, ABC journalists, even though they are so obviously biased against the Liberal Party and against Conservatives, they don't think they are. And again, this is just my opinion. I think they are so sure that their opinions and their commentary are true and factual and correct, and any opposing opinion is just an example of horrible bias. It wouldn't even occur to them to self-reflect because they are so sure that they are correct. And that is completely the wrong position to sit in if you are a journalist or a commentator. You should always be trying to prove yourself wrong and think of other people's opinions and how you can be proven wrong. So yes, please, ABC, reflect on all the things that Jack and Evan have just said, but I highly doubt they will because they're just so sure that they and they alone are correct.
Well said, Daisy.